Good morning to all of you. Today we are going to discuss about this chapter number 2, that is empirical laws and the curve fitting. Usually we have come across the variables while studying the mathematics, for example x, y, z or a, b, c. We try to establish some relationships among the variables. For example, how x is correlated with y, how y is correlated with x in such a way. So we are having the different variables along with us throughout the journey of the approximations, the polynomials, whatever we used to study. So this chapter, which is being introduced in the syllabus of the GTU, that is ME SEM-1 WRE SEM-1. So this name of this subject is, we have already discussed about the numerical methods in civil engineering. So this is also one of the chapter that is we are going to study after the chapter number 1. We have gone through the chapter 1, the chapter number 1, that was error and error analysis and the types of errors. So that we have already discussed the types of errors. So that we have covered. And now we are going to study about the empirical laws and the curve fitting. So before going into deep, what are the variables, what are the constraints, what is curve fitting, what is empirical, that we will study. But what is the meaning of this empirical and variable? These two things we need to quantify and identify. What is the meaning of empirical and what is the meaning of variable or variables? Okay. So what is empirical? Empirical means any conclusion or any study which is based on observation. Anything based on the observation or experience. So whatever you are having any observation or experience rather than pure logic. So in this, rather than theory or pure logic. So in this, you are not going into the depth to the theory, but anything which you are saying, that is based on the observation, whatever the things you are observing or whatever your experience is there. Okay, so either experience or observation is known as what we can say is the empirical. So we need to understand, this is a term in the water resources engineering. You will hear this term, empirical formula, empirical law. All right, in rainfall runoff also you will study. So empirical meaning is there, that is what is your observation. So you are not going into the theory, you are not going into the pure logic or the sense, but you are saying something on the basis of observations or the experience. You want to speak up on the basis of observation or experience. That is what we call as the empirical. We need to understand it. So empirical is any solution, any study that is based on the observation rather than the pure logic or the theory. All right. So anything, if you want to say, you want to speak which is your observation, your experience, but not correlating the theory or the logic, or you don't know that it will apply in the theory or logic, that is actually the empirical. All right. In the second term, we will try to discuss about the variables as well. So in the mathematics, in the polynomials, in the approximations, we come across the variables. For example, x and y. There are two variables and there are category of the variables as well. For example, if x is something, so of course y will also be having some values. For example, x and y are correlated by this simple equation, that is y equal to mx plus c, where this m and c, these two things are the constant. So we used to prepare some graphs. This is x-axis, this is y-axis, of course abscissa and the ordinate, and you are having something observations. For example, These are correlating like a straight line. Here some values you are obtaining, all right. Some constant is there, some slope is there. So you are trying to obtain the value of y in the form of this. So y is equal to mx plus c. That equation you want to obtain, you are pertaining to obtain that equation. This is known as what we can say as one type of the equation in which x and y, these two things are the variables. X and y are the variables, whereas m and c are the constant. So we need to understand these two things, that variable is something which will vary, of course, which will vary, but once value will be dependent upon the another's. For example, if y equal to mx plus c, so y will depend upon this x. X is also variable, y is also variable, but this particular value will depend upon this. So this is independent. Whatever value of x is there, y will change, but x may also change. But the value of y is depend on x. So y is dependent and x is independent. So it will be independent and this particular y will be the dependent. So alright, these are the two variable equation or the two value theory. Alright, we are observing this. This is very basics and simple equation that we used to have for the straight line. Sometimes there may be the other type of lines, higher order equations may be there. For example, parabola, hyperbola, such type of graphs in x and y may be obtained. Alright. So these are the different types. Sometimes the logarithmic equations are there. So different type of equations are also there, and we used to have what we can say relationship between these two variables. So x and y, this is the case of the two variables. Okay, now we will try to extend this, that what is empirical law. We have understood that empirical means anything that is based on any study or solution which is based on the observation. All right, whatever you are observing or whatever your experience is regarding variables. All right, so the general problem is to find a suitable solution or a suitable relation, means you have to exist that is between the x and y. So such a relation which is based on the observation or the experience, any relation between the x and y two variables is empirical law. So that is we need to understand. Empirical means the solution of a problem which is based on the observation or experience. We are not going into pure logic or the theory, and we are trying to find out the solution. So that is being called as an empirical law. Meaning of empirical is finding a solution based on the observation and experience, and empirical law means try to find out or exist a relation between x and y in such a way they are correlated. All right, so that is the empirical law, where we try to predict something, some correlation, or correlate these or connect these two things. The process of finding the equation of curves of best fit, which may be the best suitable for predicting unknown values, is known as the curve fitting. Means to find out the value of equation. For example, x and y is there, and x is having some values 1 2 3 4 5, y is being obtained by this, for example 5 10 20 30 40, in such a way some values are there. So we will try to put up it on the graph. We will try to obtain some equation between x and y. So that particular equation means this curve will be fit. So one of the best fit curve will be obtained somewhere, maybe straight or maybe linear or non-linear. All right. So that established relation between x, y and y, that is known as the process of curve fitting. Curve fitting means the exact relationship between the variables by the algebraic equation. So if algebraic equation is there in x and y, so it may be y equal to mx plus c, or it may be y equal to ax square plus bx plus c, Alright, so any relation and it may be the algebraic equation may be of different order, different degree, or y equal to ax cube plus bx square plus cx plus d. Alright, so here the order is 3, here order is 2, here it is linear equation. So such type of things will be obtained. So that is known as the curve fitting. Alright, so these are the things. What are the different methods of fitting a curve? Now that we will go through it. So meanwhile, we will discuss that what is empirical. So empirical is finding a solution that is purely based on the observation or experience, and we are neglecting the theory or logic behind it. Alright, so that is the one thing that we have discussed. What is empirical law? Empirical law means try to connecting the variables within the empirical solution. Alright, and the third thing that we have discussed is the curve fitting, means this particular curve fitting that we have discussed means the procedure of establishing the relation between the x and y, how we are obtaining the equations, how we are fitting the curve, that will come under it. Now there are following methods are used to fit the curves. What are those methods? So following methods are being used. So first is the graphical methods, which is most commonly used. We used to have the values in the Excel sheet, MS Excel, and used to plot the graph or simple graph paper. Sometimes we are using and try to establishing some equation. So that is the graphical method. The second method is the principle of least square. That is principle of least squares. That is also used, and we will discuss it in the detail. You have to refer my notes also in the detail to understand this principle of the least square. What is the concept we will discuss over here. The third method is the method of group averages. The method of group averages. And the fourth one is the method of moments. The method of moments. So these are four methods. One is the graphical method. Second is principle of least squares. Third is method of group averages. And the fourth one is the method of moments. So these are basically the four methods. Those are being used. So graphical methods is used if the data correlating variable is reliable and it can be plotted on the graph. If you are able to develop some relation between the x and y, whether it may be straight line or in any way, so that you can obtain. So that is based on the graphical method. Then next one is the principle of least squares. Principle of least square works on the phenomena. The procedure is very simple, that we are having some values. Okay, these are different values. This particular first value will be x1 y1, second will be x2 y2, third is x3 y3, fourth is x4 y4. All right, so these are the different values. In x it is x1, in y it is y1, and there is one graph which is coming over here. So there will be some difference between these values from this line. So with the least value, the difference of the least value will be counted and it will be squared. For example, here will be x minus x1. So sometimes x may be greater, sometimes x1 may be greater. So sometimes this value may result in positive and sometimes it may result in negative. But if we have to find the average, if we have to come for a conclusion, then we must have to go for the magnitude of this value. So what we will do, we will square that particular value, x minus x1, the difference square we will do. So if the value is either positive or negative, its square will always be the positive. So the minimum, the difference will be there, will be counted in the method of the, what we can say is the principle of the least square, that is over there. So the difference is being calculated in the two value, that we will discuss in a detail itself. Then comes the method of group averages. That is this third method. So if we are having number of datas x3 to xn. So we will categorize, and of course the y1 values are also there. So y3 and up to the yn are there. So if we are having these number of values, we will divide these x1, for example x1 to x5 in one category and x6 to x10 in another category. Alright, we are making two groups. This is the first group and this is the second group. Alright, so we are categorizing it into two different groups and then we are finding the average. So it is method of group averages. First it will be divided into groups and then its average is taken. So that is one of the important thing you need to consider. Alright, so these are few things that you need to understand. So now comes the fourth method, that is method of the moments. Method of moments means we are going to conduct the moment. Moment, we know there may be some entity x and it will be multiplied by some distance or some weight and then its value will be calculated. We will try to understand all these methods using the examples. You have to refer the examples given in the notes that is being already provided to you. You have to go through those notes, you have to refer those notes and the study material which is provided to you. So up to now what we have studied, first is number one, what do you mean by the empirical? Alright, so just to try to revise the things as and when you are studying. Alright, so number first thing we have gone through, what do we mean by the empirical only. Number two, what do we understand by the variables. Number three is what is empirical law. Alright, so these are the three things we have categorized as we have understood. Then what is curve fitting? What is curve fitting, that we will categorize, that we know. And the fifth one is the methods of curve fitting. In the methods of curve fitting, basically the two methods are there. There are four methods, out of which at this moment we will study. First is the graphical and the second one is the principle of least squares. So these two methods, particularly this method we are going to study, because graphical methods you can plot. If you are having the values of x and you are having different values of y, you will be able to assess those values very easily. Alright, so you will be able to understood about it. So graphically it is easy, and graphically you will be able to plot any relation, any kind of relation between them. So at this moment you must be able to answer these questions. If such type of questions are asked with you, you must be able to answer. What is empirical? You must know that it is based on the theory of the observation or the experience rather than pure theory or the logic. Variables, the things that will vary, there may be some relationships, of course, as we have discussed. Then empirical laws means connecting the variables, try to connect the variables or the parameters. Curve fitting, establishing the relation between the variables, that is curve fitting. These all are different terms and terminologies. Then methods of curve fitting, what will be the procedures, methods that will be adopted to do the curve fitting. Now graphical methods, that is you are trying to establish one equation that you can do. Alright, now comes for the, what we can say is, try to understand the principle of least squares. Alright, so we will discuss about the principle of least squares. There are, in this principle, in this phenomena, there are two terms that is being used. First is the principle of least square. One term that is used is the least. Least means the less you able to quantify, and square means some entity will be there and we will do its square. Alright, so for example, as I have discussed earlier, for example, these points are there. It is x1 y1, it is x2 y2, x2 comma y2, this is x3 comma y3, this is x4 comma y4. Okay, so there may be different lines that can be plotted. For example, I am plotting this one line. Okay. And there may be other lines as well. For example, one line is this. This is line number 1. One line may be this is line number 2. And this is the line number 3. So if you will see, if this line number 2 is there, so the difference of these values from it are very much. This is very less, but all these three values are differing from it. All right. So the difference between the values are what we can say is increasing. Let us try this example by plotting actually one good diagram, so that will be easier to understand. Okay, so we will try to understand it with one example. All right, so I will try to have a good plot. So this particular value we are referring it as 1. Its value is x1 y1. This particular value is second and its value is x2 comma y2. This is third, x3 comma y3. This is third. And fourth is coming, that is x4 comma y4. Alright. So this is the fourth value. Alright. This is fourth value. So, and if one equation is there, so this particular distance is very near to this value. Alright, I will change the ink so that you will be able to better understand this. So you will find the distance, that this particular value is of course will be, for example, x1 dash y1 dash. This is very near to, close to it, that will be x2 dash y2 dash. This will be, means on the line it will be x3 dash y3 dash, and here this particular value will be x4 dash comma y4 dash. Okay, so these are the difference, these are the values particular on the line, and these are the values outside it. So which is the best suitable line? There may be number of lines, one line may be above it, one line may be below it. All right. But if you will try to find out the error for the one, E1 will be, for example, if you will try to go, it will be, for example, y minus y1 dash. Alright, E2 will be y2 minus y2 dash. Alright, E3, the error in the third will be y3 minus y3 dash. And E4 will be y4 minus y4 dash. So these are the different errors. Here y1 is below it, so it will be in the negative. This will be in the positive. This will be again negative, and this will be positive. If you will try to find the difference somewhere as far as the y is concerned. Okay. So some error is positive, some error is negative. What you will do? You will do the E1's square. So it will be y1 minus y2 dash square. Then each and every value is going to be positive because we are doing the errors square. So that is the most important concept, that whatever be the difference of the two values is concerned, its difference square is being seen. So whichever be the difference is less and its square will be done, then that particular principle of least square will be worked out. So the thing that I wanted to convey is, for example, these are few plots. These are the lines. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are the points, or these are the plots. So there may be number of lines. For example, this is line number 1. For example, this is line number 2. For example, this is line number 3. This is line number 4. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Which line will be best suitable? The line which is having least difference from each and every point. The square of the least difference. That is the principle of square. So कौन सी line best fit करेगी इन 1, 2, 3, 4 में से इन points को? क्योंकि staggered है. लेकिन एक line ऐसी आएगी जिसमें least square, the difference of x minus x dash, we will do its square, and जो value, the particular value will be the least, any least value will be there, because there will be only one line whose component of the square of the least value will be the less. So that is we need to understand that we will do square of the difference and then we will combine. So that is what we consider it as a principle of least squares. So there are different lines fitting the what we can say is straight line, fitting exponential line, fitting the parabolic line. So different equations and its principles has been given in the notes which is being provided and already given to you. So you have to refer those notes because in a short time it is not possible to do all the derivations, but it is very much easy to be conveyed. For example, if we want to work for the straight line, for example, straight line is there, that is y is equal to mx plus c, that we all know. Okay, so the theoretical line is y equal to mx plus c, that you all know. Alright, so that is one of the important equation. It is y equal to mx plus c. And this y1 is equal to mx1 plus c. So this is the equation that is obtained. So one will be the equation, that is equation of the line, जिसको हम बोलेंगे that we can call it as a equation of line. So that is the theoretical value, and one will be the staggered values presented over here. So we will try to find out this square of the difference from the different values. All right. So these are the things are also present over there. So what is the error? For example, this error is equal to y minus y1. So error will be equal to y minus y1. All right. So what will happen? So error will be y minus, what we can say is mx1 plus c. That is the equation that we all already know. So y minus mx1 plus c. So that will be the equation. So here we have to do its square, y minus mx1 plus c, and then its square. So that, and we have to aggregate that particular value. And principle of least square means whatever be the sum is, what we will do, e1 square plus e2 square plus e3 square plus e4 square, and it will go on. All right. So this sum, for this sum has to be minimum, you have to differentiate this particular value. For this s to be minimum, the differentiation of the s with respect to the constant, for example, this is m is constant. So this del s by del m ds, the differentiation of s and m, must be equal to 0 for the value s to be. This sum has to be 0 or near to 0. That is our m. This s to be minimum means this as the sum of the errors has to be minimum. This sum has to be minimum. All right. So that is the thing. For example, you have to differentiate it twice with respect to m and with respect to c as well. So these two differentiation you will do, and you have to obtain the normal equations. Once you will be able to obtain the normal equations, you have to understand what is the normal equation. So for straight line, there will be one normal equation. For parabolic, there will be one normal equation. The derivation is already provided in the notes, and you have to revise those things or those values whichever is provided or given itself. So similarly, you can go through the parabola as well. So you have to practice for the straight line. You have to revise it yourself. Number one. Number two, the parabola. Alright, so parabola equation that you have to revise. Then log equation you have to revise. So these 2-3 things are there. For that, you have to understand what is normal equation. You need to identify and go for the normal equation. So these are the things for the principle of the least squares you need to concern. So that is also being provided in the notes. You have to go for it. Also the exponential equation is there. Exponential equations, that is already provided. So you have to revise the differentiation of the sum, because what we have to do, there may be number of values. there may be number of values. All right, so only one equation will be there in which if you will try to find the difference between these values, it will be minimum, because at a time we have to consider all the points all together. So there will be only one line whose sum of the squares, the error squares, because what is error we have already know, the measured minus theoretical. So there will be two values. Theoretically there will be two values. One value is present on this line and the another value, that is our observation, that is our measured value is there. So there will be two value, one is measured, one is theoretical. All right, so the difference, this error, square of the error has to be, this s has to be the minimum. And if this s is minimum, then you will be able to understand about it. All right, so as far as today's revision is concerned, what we have discussed, number one, we will go one by one to all the derivations and all the concepts, and you should also revise all those things. So what we have discussed is, number one is, what do you understand by the empirical? What is the meaning of this? You must be aware about this now. What do you mean by the variables? All right, variables are there, constants are there, so you must be able to comment on this. The third one is, which is also most important, that is empirical law. Empirical law means x and y, you are going for some relationship between the variables. Okay, then fourth one is there, that is the curve fitting. So you are going to prepare. So here when you will see, and then comes the methods of curve fitting. So we have discussed theoretically on the two methods. One is the graphical, one is the principle of least squares. Through the notes or through the subsequent lectures, you will able to understand it in the detail, methods of curve fitting. So if you will see the flow from top to bottom, then first you are understanding what you are going to study. Then introduction of variables and the constants M, A, B, C is there. All right. Then empirical law. There is some connection. At this third point, we are understanding that there is some connection between X and Y. And in fourth point, what is that connection that we are finding out? Okay. So empirical law and curve fitting are different. Empirical law means there is some relationship or connection and we are working for it. And curve fitting means we are trying to find that particular relation. So that is the curve fitting. And there are different methods of the curve fitting as well, and in which this particular principle of least squares is having its own value and importance. Alright, so that's it for all today. And you have to go through the methods of curve fitting. We will also discuss it in the subsequent lectures. And you can contact to me if you are facing any problem in understanding this particular thing, because you have to go for the derivations and finding out the normal equations as well. So this is the flow of this chapter number 2 that you have to practice. All right, so thanks for the today. Okay.